Traditions, values, culture. These are the things that help us remember where we came from. It's time for Family Heritage Stories.
I'm Doug Jessop.
And I'm Nicea DeGering, and welcome to Family Heritage Stories, where we talk about what makes us. Things like traditions, values, and culture.
How are these things passed down from generation to generation? Through deeds, through words, and through stories. I want to welcome this lady right here, my new host, Nicea DeGering. We're going to be hearing from her later in the show.
What kind of values are you passing down to the next generation?
There's a theme that I kind of notice that you keep bringing up, and it's your faith. So tell me, why is your faith important to you?
It's the driving force in my life. I don't believe I ever gained a testimony. I think I always had one. It just became more important to me. I was not raised in an active home, but my mother always saw to it that we attended our meetings. I wasn't particularly into it until I got to be a young teenager, and my next door neighbor, who was my age, had to go to sacrament meeting every Sunday. I didn't have to go. I went to Sunday school, and as far as my mother was concerned, good enough. But this next door neighbor said, well, we're going to have a special meeting this Sunday, so why don't you come and go? And back in the day, we had split schedules. You went to Sunday school in the morning, sacrament meeting in the early evening or the late afternoon. Fast Sunday was always held the first Sunday of the month, but it was always in the morning, and there was no meeting in the evening. So they'd use that meeting for various other things. And this particular time, it was a musical program. They had a lot of singers and instrumentalists, and they'd asked everybody to bring flowers. It was in the summertime. And they had these risers on the side of the chapel, inside, and where all the flowers were put. And I remember the piano, gorgeous grand piano, cherry wood. It was red, it had carved legs, beautiful thing. And the music was fabulous, and I thought, wow, this is great. I loved the spirit that was there, even though it wasn't a particularly church meeting. But so I started going. When I was 14, our mutual teacher, which is what they called young women back in the day, suggested that we should read the Book of Mormon. There were no Book of Mormons for dummies. There was no come follow me manuals. So just read it. So I started reading it at age 14, and I finished it at age 16. Needless to say, I hadn't been terribly consistent in my reading. And by the time I got through, I really couldn't tell you much of anything I'd read, except 3rd Nephi. And I still remember sitting on a stool in the basement, tending the washing. Didn't have automatic washers. You put the washing in, and you had to take it out, or it had washed till next Tuesday. So I was sitting there on a stool, tending the washing, reading 3rd Nephi, and thinking, if this isn't true, it should be. I just knew it was true. And I've always had a relationship with the Savior. I've always felt close to him. So, yeah, that's...
There are things that, and it is interesting, I'm a grandfather, and my grandfather was really influential to me. And I didn't realize how much of an impact I would have on my grandkids until you're there. You can explain it, but until you actually experience it. What are some of the values and teachings that you want your grandkids and your great-grandkids to know?
Pretty much what I just told you. I want them to know about my feelings for the truthfulness of the gospel. And that if they will follow this, they're not going to escape the trouble and problems of life, but their lives will follow a pattern that will get them eventually where they want to go.
Is that
Traditions, values, culture.
These stories deserve to be remembered with an in-studio interview.
We take out the bloopers, add in your pictures, and give you a digital video to keep.
For pricing and to schedule your interview with either me or Nicea, go to FamilyHeritageStories.com. Tonight on Family Heritage Stories.
Oliver Cowdery's Book of Mormon.
There is something so special about the bond between grandchild and grandparent. So how would you answer the question? Tell me about your grandma or your grandpa.
Never ignore a prompting, okay? So I don't care what faith you are. I mean, I am a religious man, and I do believe that there are thoughts put into our minds that are guiding and direction. Have you ever experienced any of that kind of?
I'll tell you a quick story. My mother grew up in a really tough household. Her father was an Army mechanic. And things like, I love you, were never said in that household. Well, one time she came home from church where her Sunday school teacher had told her, you should be saying I love you to your parents. And she told her teacher, I can't do that. And her teacher told her, you must do that. And she felt a bit of inspiration that she needed to act on this one thing. So on Saturday night, her daddy had come home from work and he was standing against the stove, cooking something on the stove, and she knew she had to do this. So sitting there, she said, Dad, I love you. Now his back was towards her, and he didn't turn around. And she thought, oh, he must not have heard me. So she said it even louder, Dad, I love you. He turned around and he was teary-eyed. And she stood up, and the two of them came together, and he embraced her for the first time she could ever remember that he hugged her and told her that he loved her. Now, when I knew my grandfather, he told me he loved me every single time I saw him. That one bit of inspiration that my mother had changed the trajectory of my grandfather's life for good.
Wow. The last words that my grandfather said were, please remember me. This is Doug Jessop. It would be my honor to help you share your story with a private in-studio interview with a video for you to keep. Go to FamilyHeritageStories.com for pricing and to schedule your interview. Part of Family Heritage Stories is passing along good stories. But you know what? It's also passing along those hard stories, those things when you had to struggle.
With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nicea DeGering, and I'm sitting down today with Kaytlin Mangelson. Kaytlin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I want to start right at the beginning with you. Tell me where you grew up.
So I grew up in a very tiny town called Burlington, Wyoming. There was, when I was growing up, the sign said 250 in the population. So it's just a very tiny little town.
You
Not
made
much
it
there.
251.
Yes.
Yes. Siblings.
I am 7 of 8.
That's a lot of kids.
Yes. So I come from a big family. It's always a full house. Very fun. My mom's family have lived in Burlington or nearabouts for generations, so there was always lots of family around. Aunts, uncles, second cousins, third cousins. I knew all of my grandma's sisters and brothers. I called my mom's first cousins by aunt and uncle. So very large family.
What was Linnie like?
So when she was really little in the hospital, we didn't see much of her personality. You can't show much personality if you can't breathe. Once she started breathing, then all of this personality came out. She's very stubborn, very, very determined. If there was something she wanted to do, she would figure out a way to do it, and she'd figure out a way to do it her way. And very social. She loved to be around people, loved to be around family.
How did you reconcile your hopes and dreams for this baby with what the reality was?
Time. I think in some ways that was something we struggled with the whole 8 years that we had her with us, is that her life would never look like what you imagine when you find out you're expecting a baby. You have all of these dreams and expectations that you may not even realize you have until they're not possible anymore. But I think we also came to peace of like, we can give Linnie a really good life where she is. We tried really hard and decided early on we weren't going to let her physical limitations or her medical complexity stop us from doing what we wanted to do as a family. So if we wanted to go camping, we'd go camping. We'd figure out a way to do it. We'd figure out a way to get a generator or a battery pack, whatever we needed to power her medical supplies so we could still go. We took her camping, we took her to family reunions. Lots of those family reunions, she ended up sick, and we had to spend a week in the hospital because she got sick, but we felt like it was worth it to her and to the rest of us that we could spend time with family and spend time out and about and not lock ourselves away.
What could she do? What did she like to do?
So it depends what time of life we're talking about. She loved to sing songs. Loved Moana. Moana was her very favorite.
I had a feeling that that's what you were going to say.
Yes.
Because I'm looking at what's in front of you.
Yes.
and I see Moana. What is this? Why is it special to you?
So when Linnie was 3 years old, she had a brain injury. She got the flu, and it compromised her airway, and she was without oxygen for 10 minutes. That caused extensive brain damage. So where before she wasn't really physically limited, after that she was confined to a wheelchair. She had very little use of her hands. She had some use of her left hand, basically no use of her right hand. And it was very hard to find toys that she could do because they're just not designed for kids with her needs. Well, we found this at a toy store, and they had a demo out, and we showed it to Linnie, and Linnie fell in love with it. She already loved little figures. She loved their names, and what this thing does is it plays the music for the character when you put it on top. And since it could like magnetize on top and then play her songs, she just loved it. So this went everywhere with her.
Hours and hours of the Tony box.
All the time. Yes. And if it died and the charger died, then we had to get the charger quick or she would be mad.
But it's something she could do.
She could do it. Yes.
So this is her favorite character.
Yes.
Who else did you bring? Who else did she love?
She loved everybody.
Everybody. Okay.
She loved all of them. We liked Coco.
Mm-hmm.
She really liked doing Doc McStuffins when she was at the hospital or at doctor's appointments because it was, the doc is in and he'll fix you up. And she just thought that was funny. Daniel Tiger was a favorite.
And this reminds you of her.
Yeah.
When you look at that, you
Absolutely.
think of her.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
She was how old when she passed away?
8 years old. Yeah, 8 years old. She'd been in the hospital just 6 weeks before. Bad cold that turned into pneumonia. And it was the sickest she'd been in a really long time. And Josh and I kind of had to face like, are we starting a long decline here? Which was a scary thought. It's like we've already done so much and we're so good where we are. It was hard to face, is this going to be a long, slow decline? But 6 weeks later, she was in the hospital again, even worse. And her lungs just, I think her lungs just gave out. I think she was ready to go. Yeah, and so she passed away. We were both there. We were holding her, singing to her, but it was the right time.
She's a big part of your family. Those cute kids in that picture.
Yeah.
How are they doing?
They're doing okay. They have their moments. We all do. But I think that we've tried really hard to just say, hey, we can talk, we can laugh, we can cry, we can just feel it all, and we just all feel it together. And that's okay.
What are your family stories? I'm Nicea DeGering.
I'm Doug Jessop. It would be our honor to help you share your stories with an in-studio interview.
We take out the bloopers, add in your pictures, and give you a digital video to keep.
To schedule your interview, go to FamilyHeritageStories.com. How do you want to be remembered? It's not just a question for old people.
And you and Josh saw the power of the Tony box, and you want her legacy to live on with other children receiving that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when she passed, we had several family members and friends ask us if we had any particular charity or foundation that we would like people to donate to in her memory. And we decided we wanted to do something personal. And so we thought about children's hospitals, because children's hospitals they're one of my very favorite places. They're this incredible place where it's both a horribly sad, depressing place to be, because you've got kids who are facing pain and worry and fear. Their siblings are facing it, their parents are facing it. No family should have to go through those things. And at the same time, they're these magical, wonderful places, because children's hospitals are where communities come together to support these kids and to support these brave parents. And so you have music therapists, and you have child life therapists and art therapists, and you have community bringing in pizza parties and toys and books and blankets just to support these kids and bring them a little bit of happiness. And we certainly, we have a closet full of blankets that we've received from hospital stays. And this was something that we're like, this is thing that kids can play with, even if you're stuck in a bed, even if you're hooked up to IVs and tubes, and you can play this. And even kids who have special needs, who have disabilities like Linnie, it's accessible to them. And for Linnie, it was a bridge. She used it as a way to communicate with people that she couldn't communicate with normally. Her very first surgery nicked her vocal cords, so her vocal cords were paralyzed. And so she spoke, but it was in a very, very tiny, harsh little whisper. Pretty much only her family could understand her. But she would use this box to communicate with people and be like, hey, let me show you this cool thing. And she loved that it allowed her to play and interact.
Be like other kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Now you are hoping to raise money.
Yes.
So that all of these hospitals have
Yeah.
access to these.
So we started a GoFundMe. Our plan is we would love to give Tony boxes to as many children's hospitals as we can. Our kind of plan is that we would have a set of Tonys similar to what we have here that are keyed to the box that we can then give to the child life specialists at the pre-op department. So when you've got a couple kids who are in to get their tonsils out or in to get surgery, they have this that they can bring into their room as something to distract them and make the waiting time easier. And we'd love to have one for the therapy, like the rehab departments, the PICUs, just the regular floor, anywhere where the kids are that they just need something to play with.
Tell me the hospitals that you are excited to make the donations to.
So we want to do Primary Children's Hospital here in Utah. She spent her last 3 years of care here and just received wonderful care from them and their doctors and surgeons. We definitely want to support Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Josh and I like to joke we grew up in Michigan because so much of our family growth and who we are as a couple, who we are as a family started there with Linnie's story and our time at CS Mott. So CS Mott Children's Hospital. And we also spent a year in Pittsburgh, the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. If we can, if we're able to, we would love to spread out to more children's hospitals because all children's hospitals are essentially the same. It's what I said about communities coming together to support families going through such difficult challenges, unimaginably difficult challenges. And that just holds a special place in our heart. So we'd love to do nationwide in Columbus, Ohio. That's where my husband grew up. Would love to do Seattle Children's Hospital. That's where we have a special niece who has gotten a lot of her medical care at Seattle. So all children's
You
hospitals.
would love the Tony box to go across the country. All right, if people want to help and find the GoFundMe, what should they do?
So I think that we're going to be putting a link up, but it's a GoFundMe. It's under Linnie's Hospital Treasures. Linnie is Linnie, apostrophe S, and it's her hospital treasures. And they're just the Tony box and her angel deer Lovey that were two things that just brought her so much comfort in the hospital. Anytime we went to the hospital, anytime we went to a doctor's appointment, those two things had to come with us.
How would you like Linnie to be remembered?
I think the things that I want to remember about Linnie is her joy and enthusiasm for life, her joy and enthusiasm for people and building connections with people and relationships with people, and to slow down and take the time to connect with people, especially if they're different from you, especially if they maybe don't connect the same way that you do. It's worth it. She's just an incredible little girl, and the people who took the time to get to know her and connect with her fell in love with her. She charmed everybody. So that's what I would.
Because you knew her, you've been changed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How would you like to be remembered?
I think I'd want to be remembered as a mother and a wife who tried her best, worked hard, was able to do hard things, and stay positive and stay happy and find the joy in whatever circumstances you're in.
Join the journey no matter how tough it gets.
Yeah.
The bumps in the road have
Yes.
been many, but you've held on.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you for sharing her legacy with all of us.
You're welcome.
With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nicea DeGering. Objects with stories. Those are treasures remembered.
Hi, this is Doug Jessop. Welcome to Treasures Remembered. With me today, Brandon Fugal. Now, Brandon, you always bring the most incredible stuff, but today you brought a lot of stuff, but I have to admit, for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, this has got to be the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
I believe that in this case is held the Holy Grail of Latter-day Saint history. This is the Book of Mormon, belonging to Oliver Cowdery. This is Oliver Cowdery's Book of Mormon from Kirtland.
So who is Oliver Cowdery?
Oliver Cowdery is essentially the co-founder of the faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He is the principal scribe of the Book of Mormon and one of the three witnesses that went to his death, never denying his testimony that he had been visited by an angel and shown these plates, this ancient record that was translated by Joseph Smith. Oliver, as the most important witness of the restoration, was also the only witness to all of the priesthood truth claims of the faith. He's the only witness to John the Baptist restoring the Aaronic priesthood and Peter, James, and John restoring the Melchizedek priesthood.
In addition to all the patina on this, this also has a special inscription, if you will, on not just 1 or 2 pages, but I think it's 23 pages?
25 pages bear his handwriting. So you have 25 pages of Oliver's book that bear his notes in the margins. I think it's important also to note that Oliver was the only witness to the angelic events and happenings at the pulpit of the Kirtland Temple, where Moses, Elijah, and Elias appeared, as well as Christ himself, as reported by Cowdery and Joseph Smith.
Now, this was bound by him as well?
Yeah, this is bound by him with his signature red Morocco leather, his tooling, his insignia, and his initials, O.P. Cowdery, as well as his handwriting throughout. A full forensic analysis has been completed regarding the book, matching every letter to the Book of Mormon manuscript, where over 90% of that manuscript is his handwriting.
I got a couple questions of Brandon. It's smaller than I expected.
Right. Well, the second edition, the 1837 in Kirtland, which not only contained thousands of corrections overseen by the principal scribe and the translator of the Book of Mormon, also was printed in more of a handheld sized edition, I think for missionary work to a degree. I mean, it was carried as a missionary tract at the time and was a lot easier to put into a pocket or to be able to store away as compared to the 1830 Grandin Press version from Palmyra. The 1837 edition is 10 times more rare than the 1830 first printing.
Now, I also noticed the writing in there is really, really faint, and it's amazing that it was preserved. Is that ink or pencil?
The notes left by Oliver Cowdery are in pencil. They're still legible, thank goodness.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So it's an incredible piece of history and what I believe to be the holy grail of Latter-day Saint history.
Everyone has a story. Objects with stories are treasures remembered. We'll be right back. Human connection. That's what it's about. From cave art to doing videos on our phones for our grandkids. We're just trying to make a connection with people that we know and love. Sometimes these stories stand the test of time. Recently, I did a bunch of interviews with some veterans from a very special unit, the 159th Medical Evacuation Group called Dust Off, served in Vietnam. What is the value and the power of a story? Ask Mara.
It's priceless. It's priceless to me because when I was first sitting with the guys listening to their stories, it's something you just can't get back. And there's a lot of stories I wish I would have had recorded from my dad, my mom, my grandparents. So at least we were able to get these stories recorded.
I'm Doug Jessop.
And I'm Nicea DeGering. It would be our honor to help tell your family heritage story. Go to our website to schedule an in-studio interview on the Jessop's Journal TV set. Broadcast audio, video, and lighting are already set up to ensure quality control. All you need to do is come to our Salt Lake City studio and we'll do the rest. Our professional editing staff will take out bloopers and add your pictures to create a private digital video for your devices. Go to FamilyHeritageStories.com for pricing and to schedule your interview. It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
If stories aren't passed down from generation to generation, the stories are lost, and it's as though those people never existed.
So how do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nicea DeGering.
And I'm Doug Jessop.